Welcome to our channel, where we delve into tales of folk horror and the supernatural. Today, we explore The Cursed Property, a story of isolation, ancient rituals, and a forest spirit that watches from the shadows. I never expected the letter to reach me. To be honest, I'd forgotten I had any living relatives left in the UK, but there it was, a thick, weathered envelope with the family crest pressed into the wax. The solicitor's letter inside was brief, formal, and unsettling in its vagueness. A great-uncle, name I didn't recognize, had passed and left me his estate. No mention of how he died. No obituary I could find. Just an address, a small hamlet near the Welsh border. I didn't hesitate. City life had worn me thin. The concrete, the sirens, the people always talking but never saying anything. So when I read the words, "You are sole heir to the property and surrounding land," I took it as a sign, a new beginning. Besides, who doesn't dream of inheriting a cottage in the countryside? The drive out was long, winding, and strangely empty. The closer I got to the village, the more my phone lost signal. By the time I reached the turnoff, a narrow lane hidden between two crumbling stone markers, there was nothing but static and trees. It was late afternoon when I arrived. The sun hung low behind thick gray clouds, and a mist clung to the forest line like a warning. The house stood at the very end of the lane, just where the asphalt gave way to gravel, then to moss. It was older than I expected, a two-story slate-roofed structure, walls overrun with ivy, and windows so clouded they barely reflected the fading light. An iron gate, more decorative than useful, leaned off its hinges in front of the overgrown path. Still, there was a quiet dignity to the place, like it had been waiting. Inside, the air was stale but dry. Everything was covered in dust, but not decay. A fireplace, stone and soot-streaked, dominated the sitting room. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes I didn't recognize, many in Latin. A few bound in what looked like untreated leather. Upstairs, the bedrooms had been stripped bare, except one. The master bedroom was untouched. The bed was made. The sheets, oddly, were clean. That night, I slept surprisingly well. The silence was profound. No traffic, no hum of appliances, not even crickets. Just wind, occasionally threading through the forest. In the morning, I met the villagers, or rather, they met me. A man in his 60s knocked on my door just after breakfast, said his name was Meredith, wore a heavy wool coat despite the warmth. "We keep an eye on things down here," he said, eyes flicking toward the forest behind my house. "Place hasn't been lived in for years. Not since I was a lad, truth told. He never said my uncle's name. In fact, no one did." Over the next few days, I settled in, repaired the gate, cleaned the fireplace, tried to read some of the stranger books, but the symbols gave me headaches, like the words pulsed when I stared too long. The villagers were polite, if distant. They sold me eggs, bread, and petrol, but none ever came past the main road, and none ever spoke of the forest. It pressed against the property like a wall, old-growth oaks and ash, their roots coiled like muscles just beneath the earth. The tree line was unnaturally uniform, almost as if the forest had chosen a boundary and refused to cross it. At night, it was black as pitch, no stars, no moonlight, just a darkness that felt alert. One evening, I stood at the edge of the forest, drink in hand, watching the last light bleed from the sky. That's when I saw it. Movement, just beyond the trees, not an animal, too tall, too still, a figure, standing or hanging amidst the trunks. I blinked, and it was gone. That night, I dreamed of roots winding around my ankles, dragging me downward into soil that wasn't soil. I could hear something singing, low, like throat music, in a language older than sound. I woke drenched in sweat and mud. Over the next few days, the dreams became more frequent. Always the same song, always the same tree. There was one, massive and ancient, just deeper in the forest than I dared go. Its bark was cracked like dry skin, and its branches were bare. Even in the height of spring, a twisted, skeletal thing, and every dusk, I'd see a shape standing beneath it, sometimes facing me, sometimes with its back turned, but never moving. The villagers began to avoid me. Meredith stopped waving when I passed. The grocer turned his back the moment I entered the shop. I overheard them once, in the pub, whispering, "He stays out there after dark. Then he's marked, like the last one." Fool should have listened. You never look at the tree when the sun dies. I started staying inside once the light faded, but it didn't help. I'd wake up at the window, hands pressed to the glass, mouth dry. Eyes fixed on the forest, always at twilight. One evening, just before sleep, I found something wedged behind the fireplace, an old, leather-bound book, smaller than the rest, no title, no author, just pages filled with a looping, spidery script. Near the center, someone had translated a passage in shaky handwriting. Blood binds the breath of trees, let none forget. Let none refuse, to offer is to live is to serve. That night, I didn't dream, but I woke with a thin cut on my palm, and on the floor, just inside the front door, a single wet footprint, bare, human, and facing into the house. I should have left. Any sane man would have packed his bags and run, but I told myself it was stress, exhaustion, isolation, all the things city people joke about when they try to live off the grid. I convinced myself that I was adjusting. The forest only watched. It hadn't done anything, not really. And yet, I stopped sleeping in the bedroom. Something about the ceiling beams, thick, ancient, stained, made me feel watched, even with my back to the wall. Instead, I moved to the sitting room downstairs, lit the fireplace at dusk, waited until I was too tired to think. One night, I found a box in the cellar. The wooden steps creaked like dry bones, and the air smelled of mildew and iron. The box was small, metal, and rusted shut. Inside, after some effort, I found clumps of darkened earth, a bundle of black feathers, and a single dried flower, a type I'd never seen before. Pressed beneath the flower, a human molar. The next morning, I buried the contents in the garden. I don't know why. It felt respectful, like whatever was in that box had once meant something. A few days later, Meredith returned. He stood at the gate, didn't cross, hat in his hands. "You're not the first to inherit that place," he said without looking up. "Your uncle, he came here young, like you, took to the land, kept to himself, claimed he liked the quiet." He paused, lips twitching like they fought for the right shape. "Did he ever tell you what this place was before it was a home?" I told him I didn't even know I had an uncle. He gave a bitter laugh. They always forget the ones who remember. I asked what he meant, but he turned, walked back toward the village, and never returned. The days blurred. I stopped keeping track. The light never seemed to change much. A constant twilight. Even at noon, clouds hung low. Trees pressed closer, and the skeletal one at the forest's heart, it began to appear in my dreams again, but I was no longer a stranger in them. I stood beneath its limbs, barefooted, my hands dripping with something warm. I woke one morning to find my fingernails caked in soil, my feet stained dark, and a small bundle, feathers, twine, something wet wrapped inside, resting on the threshold. A gift or a warning? The book I'd found behind the fireplace began to make more sense, or maybe I was just reading it differently. It spoke of the root that watches, a forest god or spirit that hungers not for flesh, but for witness. It thrives when seen, fades when forgotten. And to be chosen as its witness was an inheritance. That word again, inheritance. What if the house wasn't the true legacy? What if living here, alone, cut off, watched, was the point all along? The rituals in the book weren't dramatic. No chanting, no sacrifice, just acts of presence, standing at twilight, facing the tree, remembering it, letting it see you. I tried staying indoors, boarding the windows, ignoring the pull, but something in me shifted, something old. I stopped being afraid of the forest. I began to feel protective of it. One night, a group of hikers passed through, tourists loud, laughing. Oblivious, they set up a camp near the tree, started a fire, played music, and I watched from my window, heart pounding, not with fear, but fury. The next morning, they were gone. Not a trace left, no footprints, no ashes, only a single, small pile of feathers where their tent had stood. I didn't report it, didn't speak to the villagers, didn't even feel surprise, just acceptance. I started marking time not by days, but by dusks, by how often the tree revealed its watcher, a figure I could now see clearly, pale, emaciated, with limbs too long, and eyes like carved bark. It never moved, but it always looked. And I began to look back. The longer I stayed, the more the forest came alive, not with sound or movement, but with presence. It felt like it breathed with me, and each breath I took seemed borrowed. One evening, as the sky turned the dull lavender of an endless dusk, I heard the creak of the cellar door. I hadn't touched it in weeks, hadn't needed to. But this time, it was open. At the bottom, I found a path, stone. Cracked, ancient. Where there had once been earth and darkness, there was now a narrow corridor that led deep beneath the house, lit by flickering candles that hadn't been there before. I descended, not because I was brave, but because I had nothing left not to lose. The air grew thick, not cold, but still, the kind of stillness that presses against your skin, that listens as you breathe. At the end of the passage stood a wooden door carved with symbols from the book, one I now kept beside my bed. I knew the meaning without translation: witness to root, keeper of shadow. Inside the room, I found a basin carved into the stone floor, a shallow pool of dark liquid. Not water, it smelled of copper, old blood. Above it, hanging from the ceiling like a cocoon, was a bundle wrapped in cloth and bone, slowly dripping into the basin below. I should have turned back, run, screamed, but I stepped forward. A whisper rose, not from the air, from beneath the skin of the world. You've remembered me. The voice was neither male nor female, neither loud nor soft. It simply was. You've made the path clean again." My mouth opened. I hadn't told it to. "What do you want from me?" "To see, to be seen, to be held in your mind, even as others forget." It wasn't a demand, it was a vow. The basin bubbled, the cloth bundle stirred. A hand, thin, elongated, bark-textured, slipped free, reaching toward me. I didn't move, didn't scream. I offered my palm. A finger pressed into my skin. No pain, only heat, searing and cold at once. And then the world blinked. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the sitting room. The fire burned low, the book was open beside me, and carved into my palm, a single circular eye. That night, I slept, not restfully, but deeply. I dreamed of the land before the house, before the village, just trees and a circle of stones, and men in fur and bone kneeling as twilight fell. I saw him, the spirit, the root that watches, bound to the tree, fed with blood, kept alive not by sacrifice, but by remembrance. And I was there too, among them, kneeling, smiling. When I woke, the mark on my hand was gone, but I could still feel it. I stopped eating full meals. The forest gave me what I needed: mushrooms, berries, strange roots that didn't appear on any botanical record, and the villagers, they stopped coming. One day, I walked into town, houses boarded, shops closed, no children. It wasn't abandoned, it was emptied. As though I were the last one left, as though they had all simply forgotten this place. I returned home. The forest welcomed me. The tree stood taller than before, the twilight deeper, and when I stood before it, I no longer felt like a trespasser. I felt like air. I whispered the old words, the ones from the book, the ones that meant nothing to my waking mind, but everything to something older inside me. And the figure emerged again, the watcher, the guardian, the forest spirit, its head tilted. It did not speak, but I knew what it wanted, what it needed. The land didn't hunger for death, only for memory, only for a witness, and I was willing, I was chosen. But others would come, as they always did, wanderers, buyers, inheritors. And the land would need to be remembered again and again and again. I would be here, waiting. I am not alone, not anymore. The forest sees me, and I see it. It's been years, I think. Time slips strangely here, like mist through trees. I no longer mark days, only twilights. That's when the forest shifts, when it breathes differently, when I feel the others moving beneath the roots. Not the villagers, not the lost, but them, the ones who came before, the ones who stayed. I see them sometimes, in the mirror glass of still water, in the corners of my eyes, just past the reach of firelight. They don't speak, they don't need to. We are the same now. Caretakers. Sometimes I hear the sound of tires on gravel, footsteps on broken stone, a new visitor walking up the old path. They always look confused. Some hold papers, deeds, maps. Others hold phones that won't light up. They call out, always just once, hello. It's enough. The land remembers them then, and so do I. I wait, I watch, just as I was watched. Sometimes they stay, most don't. They run, but the land, it keeps something of them. A thread, a whisper, a trace in the soil. And that's enough. They help keep the spirit fed, not in blood, but in belief. Because fear is a kind of faith, too, isn't it? I keep the house in order, the cellar door closed, but never locked, the book on the table always open to the same page. The circle of stones behind the house is mossy now, but clear. I sweep it after every storm. No one taught me to do it. I just know. And when twilight comes, I light the candles. 7, always 7. There are rules. There's always been rules. And I'm not afraid anymore. The spirit watches. It doesn't speak, not like before, but I feel it. It waits with me. Sometimes I hear it in the wind or in the creaking wood of the trees. Other times I see its form among the trunks, tall, bent, limbs like branches, eyes like twilight. And it watches the newcomers, too, deciding. They say no one owns the land anymore, that it's been lost in paperwork, abandoned. But that's not true. It's never been true. The land owns itself, and those who live on it, and those who remember it. Like me. Like you, now. Yes, you're still listening, still curious, still wondering where this is going. Maybe you've seen the house in a dream, in a forgotten photo, in the corner of a travel blog that's since vanished. Or maybe you've inherited something strange, a letter, a deed, a whisper from a relative you barely knew. If that's the case, come. There's a key beneath the third stone on the left. You'll know it when you see it. The forest will guide you. The spirit will test you. And if you remember, truly remember, you'll stay. We always need another returner. Someone to keep the path clean. Someone to light the 7 candles. Someone to watch. Because if no one remembers, he dies. And if he dies, so do we all. So, will you come? If the cursed property intrigued you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories steeped in pagan horror and psychological descent. Share your thoughts below. Have you ever felt the pull of something ancient in the woods?